last week, we're going to be right up against it here. We probably have another 10 or 15 minutes here. Last week, I mentioned engine and strength work is really important this time of the season, and I want to just very quickly go into detail about it because I posted a thing about it on my Instagram, and someone said it's really good information, which is shocking. So I just wanted to be able to provide
not from this podcast,
right? So when we're talking about engine building, just about really anything, and Daniel's experienced this. We've all experienced this in some way or another, but mainly we experience this when it comes to lifting weights. Is this idea of like progression week to week or day to day or whatever? You know, when Daniel was doing starting strength, it was like every time you squat, you add 5 pounds. We've all done something like that. You can do the exact same thing when it comes to cardio. Now, Chase doesn't have to do this because his engine is already pretty fucking incredible.
Peak condition.
Peak condition.
His naturally body produces Enduroball.
Right. That's right. Naturally, his body produces Enduroball.
It's actually my blood.
But when you're like me and you want to get in better shape,
that's how you make Enduroball is you milk Chase. You get in the bucket, and you slosh it around. You pour it through a coffee filter. You want to get those.
Let's picture the first and last episode of the Dana Carvey show.
God.
This is the second time in a month that this has happened.
That's disgusting.
And then you put it in, you dry it out. You want to lay it all out on a piece of wax paper.
Turn it into jerky.
You all on the wax paper. You put that in the sun. It's gonna get real crispy. Then you're gonna break that shit off and like get it, and then you're gonna pour it into a thing, and you got a powder. So then mortar and pestle, you're gonna pour that powder in there because it's gonna break it up. You're gonna grind up that powdered Chase milk, and then you're gonna want to put that in pills. And that's Enduroball.
That's right.
Guys, by the way, you just reminded me of something which is the greatest thing from yesteryear. It could be pulled up as video here, but the Dana Carvey briefly had a show. I believe it aired for like one or two episodes, wherein I believe like the first sketch of the first show involved, it was a Bill Clinton thing, this back in the 90s. But the sketch involved, somehow the punchline involved Bill Clinton opening up his shirt and having six nipples and milking tits out of it. It looked disgusting, and that sort of was the beginning and end of the Dana Carvey show, just because it was so horrific.
By the way, you should watch. There's an entire like 90-minute Hulu documentary about the Dana Carvey show. Did you watch that? Yeah. But it's all in there.
I saw it live.
Yeah. But they basically, what's hilarious about that documentary is you realize Dana Carvey was the hottest property in the world. He wanted to do another show. They were offering him the Tonight Show and all sorts of things. And what he ends up going with, basically his agents negotiated their way into like network fucking prime time sketch show. And all the people he brings on are all the hottest comedy writers, Louis C.K. and Stephen Colbert and a bunch of other people. Actually, it was one of Stephen Colbert's real things. Oh, yeah. And they are so, they're all riding so high, and they think they're such hot shit that rather than actually trying to think about how to make the show, they just go and do like the most insane stuff. And like this is only the beginning. Like with what remaining episodes they have, they go hard into the craziest shit. And behind the scenes, Stephen Colbert was saying in the interview in the documentary that like they like decided like for one skit that they wanted to like have a horse fall out of an airplane. So they built an entire like horse and got an actual airplane because they said it was like 90s like network money. So they flew to like Kentucky, got in an airplane, he's standing in a field pretending to be a reporter, and they drop a fucking horse, and then the whole time that they're there, they're like going out to restaurants and eating like steak and lobster and all this shit just because fuck it. And that was anyway.
Now we have puppies drinking off of the nipples.
That's fucking incredible.
Hey guys, I think Efren's trying to troll us on the YouTube comments right now.
What's he saying?
He just said hi Chase.
By the way,
I think he wants a shout out.
Hi, Efren.
Efren today, I want to point this out. Efren today went to the gym for the first time.
Holy shit!
In 15, were you doing this? What is this?
Yeah, and he's wearing a FloElite shirt.
Oh, nice.
Holy crap! Yeah.
Wait, he went to the gym for the first time?
He went to the gym for the first time in 15 years.
Whoa!
He said today, and now his legs are very, very sore because apparently, I guess Christian got him to do squats for the first time. He says he hasn't been to the gym in 15 years. And he is now sore. So we need to get Efren into that fitness life.
You need to be his personal trainer there. At least set him up on a program there.
Easy peasy. Follow one of the programs on FloElite.
Isn't the punchline to that he vomited?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. He vomited. Yes, as well.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That this isn't an exciting story until you get into the vomit.
So he did some squats, and he did a little bit of fitness, and then threw up.
That happens to me all the time.
Efren needs to get his work capacity up. Not to Chase milk levels, but to at least Daniel levels.
Now back to developing an engine. Now that we've taken this
Thank God.
aside,
if you were to take, say, Efren and want to bring him up, give him a kind of
This-
a natural chase milk.
doesn't
How
apply
would-
to Efren.
No, I'm saying same content that you were going to say, but let's instead reframe it more interestingly. If you wanted to generate a kind of natural chase milk within Efren, if you wanted to put some chase milk inside of Efren's body, how would we do that? Fitness advice. Go ahead.
Okay, so you want to think 2 to 4 workouts a week. You want to think at least one of those is long, like 40 to 60 minutes of just long rowing or running or whatever, biking. You want to go mixed intervals, anywhere from 30 seconds to 8 minutes. I mean, sometimes I'll do like 2-minute intervals. Sometimes I'll do 3-minute intervals. Sometimes I'll do 8-minute intervals. Sometimes it's shorter, like 30-second intervals. Either way, you can do anywhere from 30-second to 8-minute intervals. Each week, you are going to be making those workouts slightly more difficult. So maybe it's adding another interval or two. So for example, let's say if one week you're doing 8 by 400 meter run, the next week you do 10 by 400 meter run. Or another version of it is, let's say one week you do 800s with a 2-minute break. The next week you do 800s with a 90-second break. Same amount, but less rest. And so you want to create a progression. If you don't hit your workout, you repeat it. If you do hit your workout, you make it slightly harder. And you just do this for like 6 weeks. Take a deload week, test some shit, repeat as necessary. That is the simplest possible way to develop an engine. It uses the same principles of progressive overload that we use to get better at squats and deadlifts, pressing, benches, whatever. But suddenly, people I think lose their minds when they're like, well, I just got to Metcon constantly in order to get fitter. And it's like, well, if you keep Metconning constantly, you're going to get better at that as opposed to building a global base that's going to make you better at a lot of things. Because remember, the base of the pyramid of fitness beyond, ignoring the nutrition portion, because, that shit's really fucking hard, is conditioning.
Yes.
You got to be conditioned.
Yes.
If you're not fucking conditioned, it's not going to happen. Period. Blood.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is a good way to build that.
Yes.
It's actually an interesting. There's one aspect of that got me thinking while you were talking, which is the idea of doing something for 6 weeks, assessing, and then doing it for another 6 weeks. And I mean this, and I am being serious, because I realized that when I was most on point with all of my, because like you can say what you want about like doing like old like 5-3-1 style like squat progressions or something like that, but at least it provided a structure, and I knew where I was in that structure, and then the structure would start over again. So it kept me accountable, but also kind of helped me organize my thoughts and my ambitions for my fitness. I think that maybe one of the things that I've been lacking is I feel like it's so long as your fitness, at least mine lately, has been this just continuous forward progression with no shape to it. Just like I'll squat and I'll squat and I'll squat a little bit more and I'll fitness and I'll fitness and I'll fitness a little bit more without any shape to it. It can kind of feel like you're just a hamster on a wheel and it's just going to go on forever and ever and ever. But if you begin to break it up, because I didn't think about this until just now when you're talking about do something for 6 weeks, take a week off, then do something else for 6 more weeks, thinking like maybe that's what's been missing from my life post-injury, is just blocking things out so it doesn't feel like I'm just on one endless death march to getting old. And
Aren't we all
Yes.
on an endless death march?
That is the definition of life.
yes.
That's true. But
One
I see what you're saying, because I experienced the same thing. At a certain point, I just didn't want to get into the gym every day and do some sort of soul-crushing Metcon. Because I feel like there's only so much you can redline, and that redlining, it goes away after a while. Like after the first year and a half or 2 years of doing CrossFit, you don't walk into the gym and redline every time because you cannot keep that going. So only young glands can produce the chemicals necessary.
Depends
to
how
continue
low
that.
your threshold is for redlining. Like, because I could keep that going forever.
I would argue that if you're actually getting into that zone, you're just not going to be able to do it. And at a certain point,
I redline during my warm up, is what I'm saying.
That's a good place to be. at a certain point, you start getting to, sort of like the more intermediate, advanced, masterful pacing of workouts where it looks a little more effortless, but that's because you understand how to partition yourself and to set yourself up for success to score well on a workout. But then the question becomes, once you have the wherewithal to learn how to pace yourself and the knowledge of how to maximize what you already have got going on, the second question, the most important question, is how do you actually get more to maximize? Because you can play with the tools you've got, but how do you get more tools? And that's why you do things like, I don't know, a weightlifting cycle or a engine building cycle or whatever. That's why you partition your year that way. I mean, it's no longer the case for almost anybody that I would say, hey, stop doing CrossFit and just lift weights, because that's just not going to get people anywhere. But at a certain point, you do have to start at least putting a little more effort into one thing versus another. And the whole idea of CrossFit being the main context of it doesn't need to be there. Like, I'm not super worried about CrossFit being my number one thing. I just want to be in good shape. Like, I like going to jiu-jitsu. I like doing CrossFit. I like lifting weights. I enjoy eating a garbage can full of candy every now and then. And the only way that I can justify those things and work is by working out as much as I can.
By redlining every day.
Every single day. And so I think it's really important, the same way that you see people like doing squat sets and it's like, oh, it's 3x5 at 80% or whatever the fuck it is. Like, okay, cool. Well, when you're doing intervals, I think what people go into is like, oh, I'm just going to run each of these 400s as hard as I possibly can. And then, oh, wait, my first 400 was, a PR, and my 8th 400 was
walking,
was 7.5 minutes.
Yeah.
That delta
which is my PR.
Which is that's not getting you anywhere, right? You have to find your 75, 80%, 85% and work within those ranges and build volume up over time, which is why you treat it like a progression. And that's why you actually want to take some time off every now and then, reassess, maybe pick something else up. Because you can probably keep doing engine work probably alongside everything else. You can do engine work plus any one other thing regularly forever, I would say. You can keep doing these progressions or variations of these progressions and add in, like, I'm still, lifting weights 4 times a week, or I'm also doing gymnastics, skill work, or I'm also doing positioning work on my weightlifting, whatever it happens to be. I think you can add, because a lot of the engine stuff, I think, ends up, feeding back into the system in order to, recover you and get you ready to go, for other things.
And often the engine stuff is less stressful on your body than some sick Metcon where you're just like being crushed by a barbell and yanking your shoulders out of your socket on the bar.
True.
All the time. It's less stressful.
It's also, what I found is, even as someone who's done this sort of thing before, I find the effects of it to very quickly pile on. So, for example, like, I've been
That's because you're fitness.
I am fitness.
Yes.
Even after a few weeks, where some of the workouts I've missed and or not been able to complete as written, where I've had to repeat them, I've found that I'm getting less tired doing other things. I'm getting less tired doing jiu-jitsu. I'm getting less tired at other stuff in the gym. I'm recovering better. I'm not as sore all the time. So those things I think are really key. Like, it builds a base. And if you're not going to do nutrition, let's be honest, none of us are. You may as well do conditioning. Before you really do anything else.
Interesting. So what is a what's your like? Give me a 7-day breakdown of how your that long-term stuff, the engine building stuff, and your weightlifting stuff would look over the course of a given Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday.
So I'll do something like if I can, I prefer to work out multiple times a day, but that's because I prefer to I try and get jiu-jitsu in as much as I can, and the other stuff I can do at the gym all at once, whereas jiu-jitsu has to be its own session. So, ignoring the multiple session, the second session or the first session being jiu-jitsu, a typical workout would be like, either we have the gym next door has treadmills. So either I'll do a running interval there, but they also have assault bike, skier, rowers. So I'll do something there. So like maybe the first workout of the week, I like to do something between the 90-second and 3-minute mark as my interval. So I'll do like 400s, or I'll do 800s, or I'll do, like what I did today, which was, 1 minute is 15 calorie row, 1 minute is 15 calorie bike, 1 minute is 15 calorie ski, rest 1 minute. And I repeated that 10 times. So that's one version of it. Or, it could be like 10 by 400 or 12 by 400, or, on like at the top end before I kind of reset, it would go up to maybe like 14 or 15 by 400. And then that's when you either like look into doing mile repeats or 800-meter repeats, or just reset with a faster pace. So that would be one workout, and I'll follow that up with like squat and bench. I like to squat and bench maybe twice a week, deadlift once a week, do some
lower
weightlifting.
body squats, upper body squats.
Lower body squat, upper body squat. That's right.
I follow you on Instagram.
Thank you very much.
The dip is the upper body squat.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. Bench is pretty upper body squatting. It's someone else tried to correct me and say it's the pec squat. And while I think that's cute, I think upper body squat is much better. It's like a shoulder press versus a bench press.
There you go.
You have your upper body squat and your lower body squat.
There you go.
And so I like to squat and bench a couple times a week, deadlift once a week, and do like one weightlifting session a week. So that's maybe like 3 of those. Then the other conditioning sessions would either be like row a 10K or just row for like 50 minutes, as many meters as I can. And that literally just looks like a Netflix show, pick a show and just go. So I'm not really paying attention to my pace.
You have that rower at home.
I have the rower at home.
Have the rower at home.
But
I need that.
But you can also, they have a concept too. I think Rogue also sells a holster that you can attach to any monitor on a rower, and you can just take your phone and use your phone. So you can do it at any gym that has a rower.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea.
And then the last session of the week is probably something a little more high intensity. So it's like 30 on, 30 off on like an assault bike or something like that. Something where it's like quicker intervals. That last session I might also mix in more like a CrossFit-y thing where I'll do like GHD and burpees and rowing, or I'll always have some sort of monostructural thing in there, like rowing or assault bike or ski. But at the same time, I like including maybe a toast bar or like clean and jerks or dumbbells or kettlebells or something, just to mimic a workout. And those I aim for about 20 minutes.
Nice.
And that's about it. I mean, there really isn't. There is no. It's gross. It really is gross.
Yes.
I mean, it gets really gross.
Yes.
But
and sometimes you can also watch a shorter Netflix show.
You can also watch a shorter Netflix show.
Because I've done the Netflix and rowing thing, and the idea of I don't think there's any pace at which I can get on a rower for 50 minutes and stay on that rower. I can just do a whisper on the rower of pulling, and by about the end of that 25-minute episode of 30 Rock, I am toast. So.
I watched,
baby steps, everybody.
I watched the entirety of Punisher only rowing. So I mean, we're talking
that was the Punisher.
We're talking 10 1-hour episodes where Armin was sitting on a C2 the entire time.
Nice.
So yeah, that's it right there. That would be what a general week looks like, and I would strongly suggest people try and focus on some strength and some engine building.